And welcome back, everybody. It's been such a long time since we've done a podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by David Griggs and John Slika here for our Championship Week Video Notebook.
Not video notebook.
The nightly
Good morning,
video
Chad.
notebook. Good morning, everybody. Day four review and recap here. First of all, though, if you want to see our bracket rundown show that we just recorded about less than an hour ago, just look straight down below on the site, right, David?
Yeah, it's down there.
Down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Watch that. But this is our Championship Week video notebook where we go over some news and notes. We review and recap all the conference tournament action from today and all the tournament action that's coming. Preview the stuff that's coming up tomorrow. We'll update our survival board. But we start with our favorite new feature, the mailbag. We got the letters right here.
I really don't like this mailbag. I wish people would stop writing.
Is that an IRS worksheet on there?
Yeah, I read out paper when I printed it out, so it's kind of on the back of something. But let's. Good.
I hope I didn't give away any spoilers as far as the emails.
No.
I don't even answer my own email or phone.
Actually, Sleek, I have a question for you. This one came via Twitter. The one I had to print out will come to in a second here, but this one came via Twitter from Paul from Des Moines. It just came in a few minutes ago, in fact. Very excited about Iowa's win at Wisconsin tonight, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a minute here. But I'm going to do this as a favor to Paulie. I'm going to pull up a quick screen share here. And this is that Iowa profile now. And the question for you, John, is this Iowa team with back-to-back road wins at Maryland and Wisconsin, suddenly an NCAA tournament team?
Well, Iowa's been kind of going on and off the fence as far as do we look at them? Do we consider them? I think this pushes them to, 9-8 in the Big Ten. So as long as they're at least 500, they're definitely going to get a look. But let's also not forget, one of their stinkers earlier in the year was at home against Omaha.
Yeah.
Too bad, but
they got Penn State at home coming up on Sunday. Obviously, they have to win that, but if they do, so is the answer, John, that they may be there, maybe a couple wins in the Big Ten tournament?
As a fan of another bubble team, I am definitely not happy with this development of Iowa winning a big road game.
Doing the opposite of what Xavier's doing. They're winning.
I never realized you were such a big Syracuse fan, John.
I like them more than Syracuse. I will argue for them over Syracuse.
David, I also had another mailbag question. This one came by regular mail to me today, so I always like these letters here. I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet, but it says here, "Dear David, we are writing to thank you for your interest in and support of our university and its athletic programs." Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yes.
However, once again, we are requesting that you immediately cease and desist from placing phone calls to the office of our men's basketball head coach.
This isn't a question. While
your enthusiasm for him is laudable, leaving drunken messages at 3:00 a.m. is once again wholly unacceptable.
Chad, what's the question? You're just reading a statement.
I'm just reading it.
This is not a question.
Stop this conduct immediately, or legal action may be taken. Sincerely, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. David.
It's not a question.
Here's the question. Are you calling Tim Miles at 3 a.m. again?
Well, yes, but that doesn't mean – I don't know why his secretary disapproves. I mean, if he were to ever ask me to stop, then I'd do it.
I'm just reading the mail here. That wasn't a question, though. Please, folks, when you send us mailbag, we need questions to answer.
Could you at least get a prepaid phone, one that's not trackable?
It's hard to find those at 3 a.m.
Okay, let's turn to our video notebook, and we always start with some news and notes. And we just already mentioned the huge win by Iowa tonight over Wisconsin. Couple other things, though. One thing coming out of late last night is TJ Leaf for UCLA left the game with an injury. I haven't heard any further updates in the last few hours here, but David, this could be a big injury for UCLA going forward.
Yeah, it really is. And I didn't think it was anything too long-term. I'm under the impression he'll be back, but nothing official yet.
In terms of regular season games that were played tonight, not only, other than the Iowa-Wisconsin upset, no big surprises in the major conferences. We had a couple of big surprises in some of these smaller conferences, the under-the-radar conferences that are finishing up play. Start with the smaller ones. New Orleans getting upset by Southeastern Louisiana, but then Stephen F. Austin lost as well, so New Orleans still up a game in the Southland standings.
Yeah, and no elimination there, right, Chen?
No elimination. Yeah. Northwestern State, by virtue of that win, also still remains alive, and there's now a three-way tie for the final two spots in the Southland tournament. So that'll all be decided on Saturday.
Yeah.
Eastern Washington with a win, and North Dakota with a loss in the Big Sky puts those two teams in a tie heading into Saturday. North Dakota has the tiebreaker right now in the Big Sky.
And if I'm not mistaken, the regular season finales, Eastern Washington goes to Northern Arizona, and North Dakota, I think it's Portland State they're actually hosting.
Right. We've got another big showdown coming to the Big West on Saturday. Also, Irvine and UC Davis, the single game will determine the regular season championship, although nobody gets to actually host a conference tournament, so not too much there.
Just bring your floor.
The upset of the night, even bigger than Iowa, Wisconsin. I'd argue way bigger than Iowa, Wisconsin.
Maybe one of the biggest of the year, seriously, when you talk about what is the gap there, about 250.
This was in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, the MEAC, which was actually finishing up its regular season tonight. And I can actually even pull the MEAC standings up on the screen here.
Major centenary development here, by the way.
Yes.
Major.
Here it is. Right down there on the bottom, North Carolina A&T had, prior to tonight, been the only team left in Division I without a win against a D1 opponent, without a win in conference. They host North Carolina Central, the first place team tonight, in the regular season finale, and they won by 5, 68.
They did. This is and it's kind of a development. They enter the conference tournament having beaten the best team in the conference.
It's NC Central suddenly back-to-back losses. They lost at home to Savannah State, who is on the APR list, won't be in the conference tournament. Now the North Carolina A&T loss. This is a conference that has put some crazy upsets in the past in this conference tournament, and we'll be talking a lot about this next week when they start playing this event. But who knows? Delaware State looking at a potential 8-9 game there. They beat NC Central. That was NC Central's other loss this year. But North Carolina A&T, now we turn back to Alabama A&M as our probable Centenary Award winner, although they still have one more game to go on Saturday to lock that up.
And then the conference tournament.
Actually, no, because Alabama A&M will not be qualifying for the SWAC conference tournament.
Why not? Oh, because they're only taking.
They're only taking the 8 teams.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's. I think that's it for our news and notes. So let's go to the actual conference tournament games that were played today. Back up on the screen share here, and we're going to start with the semifinals in the Atlantic Sun. We have our first championship game set. David, Gulf Coast kind of cruised over Kennesaw, and surprisingly, North Florida kind of cruised the whole way over Lipscomb.
Yeah, the final margin was 6, although North Florida had a comfortable lead pretty much all the way through. That was a surprise based on how well Lipscomb had been playing. We like this North Florida team. They really, really struggled prior to conference play, but have gotten it together. Another really nice coaching job here by Matt Driscoll and company. And, probably the two more storied programs in this conference in recent years, especially since Mercer left, meeting again for the championship. It should be fun. Kennesaw stayed with Gulf Coast for a half. They were kind of right in there for a half, but then Gulf Coast blew it open a little bit in the second half.
And that also puts Al Skinner's record against Gulf Coast at a hard luck 0-5, because I believe all 5 of their losses are actually 12 points or less, with 3 of them 10 points or less.
Yeah, but this championship game coming up on Sunday, we'll talk about it again on Saturday night and on Sunday night when this gets played. But Gulf Coast getting the home game here against North Florida and looking to return to the NCAA tournament for the second straight year here.
Yeah.
These are actually the last 2 teams. Last 2 years, the representative from the ASUN was these 2 teams. So kind of maybe a little bit of a tiebreaker game here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Today was also quarterfinal day in the Big South, and let's start right at the top there with what was the first game of the day and may have ended up being the game of the day, despite what happened towards the end of the evening here. But Campbell and UNC Asheville, the game, all three of us gave Campbell no shot at all at winning.
I said they'd win.
Chris Clemens.
I said they'd win. I said Chris Clemens would score 50 points.
51 points.
I did. I said that yesterday.
A school record.
I said that yesterday.
A Big South tournament record.
I said that yesterday.
All-time Big South record points in a game, regular season or conference tournament. Have you ever seen a performance like that before, John? In a game like this, by a team like this?
Not in a conference tournament.
It was the last time anybody broke 50 points in a conference tournament game was Jimmer Fredette, who always scored 50 points. So
it's hard to see where the hell this came from. Like Asheville had looked really good. They had the big double overtime win over Winthrop, and for a minute there, looked like they were going to cruise to first place and hosting it. They suffered a late loss, but you're still feeling pretty good about yourself, and now that's all over. Now, I do think there is a postseason tournament in their future. At least I hope. They were good enough to where I hope the CIT invites them, and they really should. But
I think there is an outside argument, and we'd have to have very few automatic bids to do it, but there's an outside argument that for an NIT bid even for this Asheville team, I think.
Yeah. I would hope so. I'd like to see them in the NIT.
But even if the NIT doesn't come calling, certainly the CIT will look to bring them into their field.
Right.
Yeah, they'll get an offer. John, as if Campbell upsetting Asheville wasn't enough, Radford turns around. David, I will give you credit for this. You call this one. But John, Radford upsets Liberty, setting up a 6-7 semifinal coming up tomorrow.
Now, this one I actually was able to see for the most part at work today, and this was a game where Radford was able to hold on late in the game. And since the Big South does not do reseeding, this is actually going to be a semifinal matchup between Campbell and Radford.
Yep. The evening session, David, Winthrop, no problem with Charleston Southern kept it close for a while, but not too close, and they put it away. And Gardner-Webb thoroughly demolished High Point.
And watch out for this game tomorrow. Winthrop should win it, but Gardner-Webb split with Winthrop during the year, and when they met at Winthrop, it was they were both close games. And Gardner-Webb is on fire. I think they've won 8 out of 10 now. Yeah. And they've been looking amazing down the stretch. So you're almost – well, not even almost. I think you're more worried about this than you are the next round.
And I believe that upset of Asheville late in the season, that was by Gardner-Webb.
Yeah, it was. It was. So, they're one of the better, hotter teams in the conference right now.
And watch out that Campbell-Radford game. Those two teams split during the regular season. So Campbell could, coming out of that 7 seed, has a real good chance to advance to the championship game.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. And the title game there, by the way, will be played at the home court of the highest seed because there will be a day off in between. So should Gardner-Webb win, they will actually get to host the championship game.
That's amazing.
And that's why we have a one-day gap between the semis and the championship here.
Gardner-Webb has been to the tournament. I'm almost certain, but I just don't remember the last time they were. Did Chris Holtman – I don't think he ever made it, but when he was there, they went from 5 wins to 24 wins, I think, in a 2 or 3 year span, and he's doing okay at Butler. He's doing fairly decent.
I don't think they've ever been in the field, John. If you maybe can check on that, though, but while we bring up the next one here.
Let me get the workbook back open.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that's a good game tomorrow. That's a real good Gardner-Webb Winthrop game.
I will go ahead and let's go ahead while John confirms whether or not Gardner-Webb has ever been to the NCAA tournament. Let's move over to the Patriot League that was also in the quarterfinal round today. Yeah. 4 games are going on simultaneously, and other than Bucknell Army, which was kind of a blowout, it was the one game we were looking forward to. Right, the other 3 were the good ones.
Lehigh Colgate went. It didn't go down to the wire, but it was close all the way through. What's kind of annoying about watching this in the quarterfinal round is that it's hard to kind of follow all 4 games because you can only sort of watch one at a time unless you just open up a second browser
Yeah,
or something.
it would be nice if they gave 2 games at 7 and 2 games at 8 or something.
Yeah, something like that, just to stagger it a little bit. We need to suggest that. But Lehigh going up to the roof, that's a real good game. I don't see Bucknell having too much trouble with Navy.
Yeah, Navy kind of floundered down the stretch. Holy Cross almost won that game. It was even closer than the 7-point final, I think.
Yeah.
BU actually had a big lead early on Loyola. Loyola came storming back in that one.
Mm-hmm.
I could see this being a Bucknell-Lehigh final. I think Lehigh's going to pull off that upset. But that's not
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Lehigh has a high ceiling that they don't always play up to, but when they do, they can beat anybody, including bubble teams like Xavier.
Okay, I'm going to give a brief update on Gardner Webb. They have never been in the NCAA tournaments, but they do have both a CBI and a CIT appearance to their credit.
Oh, well, that's just as good as an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's just the same thing.
But let's go ahead and keep moving through the conferences here. And the Ohio Valley Conference, we saw what is, I guess, technically the quarterfinal round, although Belmont and UT Martin got buys into the semis. The early game in one of the fastest games of almost in NCAA history is under an hour and a half to complete this. Jacksonville State rolling over SEMO. But the nightcap, Salika, we had a real fun game there between Murray and Moorhead.
Yep, it certainly wasn't a good night in the first game if you were a beer vendor, but as far as Murray and Moorhead, this has always been one of the better rivalries by OVC standards.
A lot of credit to Murray, and you kind of feel sorry that Moorhead had to end this way. They clearly had a better year throughout the season, but Murray, after coming off of a double overtime win, getting it done against their rival.
Yeah, and now we come up to tomorrow night, Jacksonville State and Belmont, Murray State and Martin. And David, after what they did today, I got to believe in Murray. Why not? Why not knock off Martin?
Right. It seems to be the way to win this tournament is to qualify for it on the final week of the season and then play for your way out of the opening round. Holy Cross's 5-game winning streak did end today, by the way.
Yes,
we forgot to mention that.
5-game road winning streak in Patriot League tournament.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Salika, do you see a Jacksonville State upset of Belmont tomorrow?
I do not.
Okay. Do you see Murray State over Martin, though?
That one I could see.
All right. Those games, again, are coming up tomorrow. Also in action today, would say was the first round day in the Metro Atlantic.
For the first time, we got to watch it.
The first time in Metro Atlantic history, other than Lee Del Vecchio's 5 minutes of footage he sent us a few years ago, the MEAC with 2 A's had their games streamed. The first one, Niagara, kind of rolled over Quinnipiac. But the other 2 games were pretty good ones, David.
Yeah, right. Well, let's start with the one that just ended a few minutes ago. This Rider-Manhattan game. The storyline: Manhattan having a season to forget, and you could say that it didn't even mercifully come to an end the way it ended. And I was excited because I wanted to see Manhattan-Iona, probably one of the better rivalries in the country, under the radar or otherwise, go at it for a third time, and the last 4 possessions, let's see, Manhattan hit a shot to go ahead, then Ryder hit a 3 to go up by 1, and then in the last 3 possession, then Manhattan drove the length of the court and hit a layup just after the buzzer had gone off, and then we went to replay for 10 minutes to see, did he get the layup off in time, and the previous go-ahead game-winning shot for Ryder was his foot on the line, and they concluded reasonably quickly, I guess, at least by those standards, that the shot was good. The shot was no good, and the 3 was good. So game over.
Well, yeah, reasonably quickly. If 10 minutes or so is reasonably quickly.
Yeah, about 10, 15.
But it's also important to point out that they could go back that far since there was actually no stoppage in play between the 3-point shot as well as the drive that ultimately did not count.
Yeah, so we get Iona and Ryder.
Yeah, actually, the quarterfinals are split over 2 days, so we only have 2 quarterfinals tomorrow night. Them being the top 2 seeds. So Niagara against Monmouth and Canisius and St. Peter's tomorrow. So, John, do you see an upset in either one of tomorrow's 2 games?
For tomorrow,
Does it-
there's a somewhat outside shot that Niagara could do it given how they played tonight, but I think Monmouth is going to be on a mission, and Fairfield, I'd like to call that, but not the way they've been playing
that's
of
today.
late.
It's Canisius St. Peter's is the other game. The top one and the bottom one there, John. Those are tomorrow's games.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, David, how about Canisius St. Peter's? Canisius that fell apart late, but it actually was a lot better team than the 7th seed.
Yeah, I was going to say I think Canisius does advance.
Okay. Oh, you think they're going to knock off the Peacocks, huh?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I think Monmouth is going to roll Niagara. I just don't think that. I think if Monmouth may run into trouble, but it won't be till the semifinals.
Right.
Anyone know a good eye doctor?
Let's go ahead and swap over to the Missouri Valley Conference, the last conference that was in action today, as we had the 2 first-round games. Evansville taking care of John Rothstein's non-Cinderella, non-upset Indiana State team. And Bradley, it had a comfortable lead, never really got too close against Drake. I mean, Drake was in there, but never made the big run.
Yeah.
But I think they got as close as 4 in the final minute, so Bradley couldn't completely feel comfortable.
Yeah. Arch Madness, it's a great tournament, great rivalries. I mean, lots of excitement. And tonight, the 2 games were boring.
It really was. But tomorrow, all 4 quarterfinals. If you're looking for a little afternoon college basketball tomorrow, the 1 o'clock game, Evansville and Illinois State. Upset alert here for Illinois State potentially. Great 4-5 game at 3:30 between Southern Illinois and Loyola. I think that should be a real good one.
Yeah.
I think we have a pretty good one in the nightcap too between Northern Iowa and Missouri State, and then we're going to have Wichita State playing Bradley.
Yeah. Not much. Northern Iowa, Missouri State might be halfway decent, but it's a shame we couldn't have gotten all of the Illinois teams on that. Actually, Bradley needs to be swapped out with Evansville, so we could have all the Illinois teams on that side of the bracket.
Oh, well, we do have a Southern Illinois Loyola battle there. That's an in-state rivalry.
Yeah.
John,
but Southern Illinois State's probably the big one. But
John, do you want to call any upsets in this quarterfinals tomorrow?
I'm probably going to say Missouri State would be my call. I mean, I know Northern Iowa had tough losses against Wichita and Illinois State, but they weren't as competitive in those as they had been during the second half of Valley play against everybody else.
I'm tempted.
David, do you want to call an upset? Do it.
It's very, very tempting. I don't think it'll happen, but I think there's a good enough chance to where I think Evansville beats Illinois State.
And if that happens, I think that is such a bad loss for Illinois State.
That would knock them out.
That they are out. I mean, if they lose to Wichita State in the finals, it's a different story. But not losing.
I will give all the credit. I just don't think Illinois State's ready. I think they already think they're in. They just finished in first, played a really good game, probably their best game of the year against Northern Iowa. But I just kind of feel like they've been winning a lot of close games. And I know Evansville's not that good, but it wouldn't surprise me. If they saw
what Wichita State did in the tournament last year, I would not be content to rest on my laurels because they struggled against Loyola in their quarter and actually lost to, I think it was Northern Iowa in the semis last year.
Yeah, it was.
Barely got into the tournament.
Yeah, and we've talked about this earlier, but UNI has won this tournament 2 straight years, so they're going to try to make it 3 years in a row this time, but not as good of a Northern Iowa team, and
probably a better Wichita State team.
Much better Wichita State team, I think.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at a few other conferences that are starting tomorrow. These are 4 more conferences we haven't looked at all yet, but let's start off in the Southern Conference. 8-9 game between Western Carolina Citadel, 7-10 game between Samford and VMI. But
how about the Citadel? When was the last time they finished that high?
Yes.
Wow, I mean that is a great year for them.
Over VMI. Well, let's start here. The 2 military schools, Citadel and VMI. David, either one pull off an upset tomorrow?
If it's going to be one, it's going to be Citadel over West Carolina. Samford is a little bit Clemson-esque this year with how many close games they've lost and how many overtime games. I just think that they're better than what their record indicates, or they could be, and I think they're going to roll VMI.
And that's a team that was actually in the top half of the SoCon early on, but did fade during the second half.
Well, John, you see the whole bracket here, and I think if the top four seeds make the semifinals, this could be a real good conference tournament. But I guess the question we ask, as we ask with all these, is who is your pick to win this?
It's not going to be Chattanooga, given how they've played, but I think you know where I'm going with this one, and that's going to be UNC Greensboro.
All right, David, you want to agree with him?
I still think I still like this East Tennessee State team. I know that they've lost a lot of games and they're down in the standings, but that's who I'm going to go with.
Actually, I thought it was a three-way tie for first.
Yeah.
So down in the standings, being tied for first.
Well, not an outright first-place team.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, I like this East Tennessee State among these three teams that tied for first. But, we got to do a shout-out to Furman for an amazing season for this team. Came out of nowhere to move into – we thought it was going to be a three-team battle. We just thought it was going to be Chattanooga in there with Greensboro and East Tennessee, not Furman.
Yeah, Walford playing better down the stretch, too. Mike Young, a very good coach, just doesn't quite have the personnel this year. Finished strong, and I think it continues. We'll discuss that tomorrow, though.
But it wouldn't shock me at all to see Wofford beat Chattanooga tomorrow.
I'm getting to the points where it would shock me if Chattanooga just collapsed.
Horizon League starting tomorrow as well. The 8-9 game.
Love this league. Do it right. Double by
7-10 league game between Detroit and Milwaukee. John, let me ask you, do you see an upset in either of these two first-round games tomorrow?
I mean, Milwaukee is also going to be tempting, but I think we've seen what Detroit was able to do against Oakland earlier in the year. But I would also be tempted to say Youngstown State can also win their first-round game because they beat Akron in their opener. They did get a nice win at home against Northern Kentucky a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to go with Youngstown and Detroit to win the openers.
And David, the big news, we talked about this last night, Alec Peters out for the season, the star player for Valpo.
Yeah.
Do you still want to go with Valpo in this tournament despite not having him, or you want to go somewhere else?
I'm thinking somewhere else.
Okay, so Youngstown?
Yeah, Youngstown winning the whole thing.
Do you have a real pick?
Little bit of a sleep, it's really hard to say. Oakland is the sensible pick. Northern Kentucky is the sentimental pick, and it's not completely out of the question. I don't think that NKU can win this. It would involve getting by Wright State, which I think they will, although Wright State has shown some signs of life at times. But I don't know. Can they beat Oakland up in Detroit? And that's a tall order.
Yeah, that's a tall order, and then probably potentially a Green Bay in the championship game. I'm going to actually go with this Northern Kentucky team. I'm going to go with them to win it. This is the sentimental story here is this is their first year they are eligible. They just completed their transition last year, and to actually make the tournament in their first eligible year would be a heck of a story. But I'm going to go with it, John. You want to join the bandwagon?
I'll join you in 2018, but I'm not doing it this year because they were swept by Oakland this season.
Good. You can't. So how hard is it? It's incredibly difficult to be a team three times in the same year.
And a little story about North Dakota State, I believe, is the only team to make it to an NCAA tournament. The first year they were eligible, Saul Phillips was the coach of that team. I think he was the first year coach. And he did a brilliant job because he learned under Tim Miles, who was the coach when they were Division II and through the transition. Tim Miles, now the coach at Nebraska, who's just 8 wins away from the final.
And David's been muted. John, do you have a pick to win win this conference?
I'm actually going to take a Green Bay to repeat as Horizon champion.
Okay, let's move over to the Colonial. John, let me start with you again. 8-9 and 7-10 games again. They're 8-9 and 7-10s galore tomorrow. Hofstra, Delaware, James Madison, Drexel. Are either of these games worth watching?
I mean, they'll probably be worth watching if you're a big Colonial fan, but wouldn't shock me to see both Philly ex-urban teams win.
Yeah, David, I'll let you back in the podcast
Oh,
here.
good. Well, Tim
UNC,
Miles isn't coaching any of these.
UNC Wilmington, the clear favorite to win this conference tournament, although it is being played down in Charleston. It was the 2 seed. Do you have a pick to win it all?
To win it all, Charleston.
Really?
Yeah, I think that they meet Wilmington in the finals and beat them.
I kind of agree with you that Charleston's going to win it by beating Bill and Mary in the finals.
That's another big. Again, William and Mary absolutely rocked Wilmington the last time they played. Now it was at William and Mary, but they just blew them off the court. I think it was a 20-plus point victory. They were up by 25 at one point anyway. So Wilmington, as good as they've been, has kind of a tough road, and it's really unfortunate that they don't get to host this.
Yeah, and William and Mary is on that short list of 5 teams that have been members of D1 since inception and has never made the NCAA tournament. Come close the last few years. I'm calling the same heartbreak again, although next season when we talk about that being a 4-team list,
Right.
We'll talk about Northwestern a bit here when we get to our survival board. But, John, you have a call to win the Colonial?
I mean, it is going to be on Charleston's home court, but it's only going to be a 2 to 3 hour drive for Wilmington fans to come down. So I still think they're going to represent in Charleston and actually win the conference tournament and get the double.
That would be quite a scene if it's those two in the Charleston Coliseum.
Yeah, I mean, they played some great regular season matchups.
Yeah.
Each winning on the other's home court.
Right.
Last but not least, the West Coast Conference starts tomorrow, and we see 2 huge names here, the biggest names we've seen, although they're not playing tomorrow. Tomorrow it's Pepperdine Pacific and Portland San Diego.
And they're playing for the right to play another game, and that's all they're going to get to play is one more game.
John, I'll start with you. Who's your pick to win the WCC? And who's your pick to be in the finals, first of all, then to win it?
I'm going to go ahead and say Gonzaga and St. Mary's get in.
Okay.
But
that was a stretch.
Yep.
You really went out on a limb there. Gonzaga going to beat St. Mary's the 3rd time this year?
Yes, I do. I mean, Gonzaga is just on a different level than the Gales this year.
David, you agree?
No, I'm going to go with BYU simply because if everything else is going to go wrong, why not have them in there and make building the bracket that much more difficult?
I'm going to go with you slightly, David, here. I do think BYU is going to be in the championship game. I think they upset St. Mary's in the semis, but I'm going to go with Gonzaga to get the revenge from last week and probably beat them by about 50 points.
Yeah, no, Gonzaga, if they win this tournament, they're on the 1 line. I can't see how you can't have them up there.
Okay, one other thing to get to, and that's our survival board. I should pull it up here. This is where it was after last night. We were down to 315 teams remaining.
Yep.
In addition to all the teams that lost conference tournaments today, just a quick note, UC Santa Barbara was mathematically eliminated in the Big West. They're going to fall off the board here as well in a second. But let's go ahead and actually, before I refresh it, John, what is the point of this survival board?
Well, the point of the survival board is 4 different things. Number 1, we want to highlight and bold in all camps champions, that is, teams that have already won their automatic bids.
Which no one's done yet.
Which is done so far. Okay.
I mean, we have teams in bold that we are 99.99% certain are going to make the field, even 100. If they were to lose
100.
out.
100%. 100%.
Yes.
Teams that are in italics are teams that still have a pathway to get an at-large bid in the tournament, but teams that are just in regular fonts, you lose, you're done.
Yep, and you can see here, for example, Big West had 9 heading into tonight, and something that happened late last night, David. Northwestern has been bolded. They are a lock.
They are a lock. The committee will take them.
We will be down to only 4 teams on that list that we mentioned earlier, but let's see what happened today. Heading into the day, we had 315. If we can find the refresh button here, there it is. Drum roll, please.
Wow.
Under 300.
Under 300. All right. John Xavier made it to the final 300.
It's the final 297. The
Final
Xavier Musketeers are
297.
still alive. Here's
Yeah.
that Big West down to 8, like we mentioned. Big South down to 4 teams. Rutgers in the final 297, along with
Good job for Rutgers.
Yes.
Second year in a row, Rutgers making the
yeah.
title 297. Get out, bring out the T-shirts, back-to-back years.
I guess, though, on that note, let me pull this down here and run through each of you. Any other thoughts for the evening? John, I'll start with you.
Oh, this was one I forgot to bring up earlier tonight. Is I was originally going to do a Throwback Thursday column in tribute to Allstate Arena in Chicago because this was expected to be the final season of college hoops there. But as it turned out, I overlooked one little detail. Northwestern is actually going to play a season at Allstate next year because they're going to be doing renovations to Welsh Shrine Arena where it looks like they're going to get rid of the bleachers and add chairback seating.
Why?
So
The fan experience.
DePaul is gone. Northwestern.
You know what? Unbold Northwestern. Unbold. They're taking out their.
David, any other thoughts from you tonight?
I thought so, but I get if I can't remember them, I'll just do them tomorrow night.
I'll just make one final comment here. We didn't cover this in the news and notes because the game is ongoing as we recording this, although just about over now.
Yeah.
Cal has gotten themselves thoroughly demolished at Utah tonight. It is going to be close to a 30-point loss. The Bears going in this is the last thing you need to do if you want any shot at getting an at-large bid. They are going to have to beat Colorado this weekend. They're going to maybe even have to win 2 games in the Pac-12 tournament, which means they have to beat one of the big boys in the conference. So
in the immortal words of Tony Bruno, we would like to thank the California Golden Bears for their participation in the 2017 NCAA tournament race.
Pretty much. But on behalf of John Salika down there, David Griggs over there, I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow night, way late night. Whenever the game's end, we will start. And you can watch us on tape delay about half an hour after we actually record the thing. But check out the website tomorrow night. Check out the Bracket Rundown show down below. And we'll talk to you again real soon.